Thank you. So good afternoon, now it's afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm very glad to be here, and many inspiring speeches I have heard yesterday and today, and my presentation deals with a Swedish couple, Baron Klaus Fleming and Baroness Ebba Stenbock, who were supporters of the Catholic King Sigismund, and because of their support that they gave to the king in the power struggles in the late 16th century, there have also been speculations about how close contacts they had to the Catholic Church. This presentation builds on my previous research. I have published a biography of Baroness Ebba and several articles related to the aristocracy, and also in Swedish you can now freely read a book, Adelns historia i Finland, the history of nobility in Finland. And now to the precise topic of the day. Ebba Stenbock was born in Västergötland in the mid 16th century, and she was daughter to Baron Gustav Stenbock and Brita Lejonhufvud. So she was from a very prominent family that had very close contacts, political and marital contacts to King Gustav Vasa and his family. And indeed, Ebba Stenbock's elder sister, Katarina, became the third spouse of King Gustav Vasa of Sweden. So Ebba was really, she was the sister of the queen, for a long time Queen Dowager, as Katarina became a widow at a young age. And the queenly sister, played an important role in the life of Ebba, as she was married in 1573 to Baron Klaus Fleming, and it was her queen sister, Queen Katarina, who organized the wedding in Stockholm. The spouse, Klaus Fleming, was born in the Finnish side of the Swedish realm, and he was a son to a very prominent Finnish knight and Lord Erik Fleming and Hebla Sparre. So and Klaus Fleming was one of the biggest landowners on the area of present-day Finland, so it was a good match. Ebba Stenbock was married into a family that had a lot of landed property, and Klaus Fleming married to the close connections of the royal family. Klaus Fleming, then, he was loyal to first King Johan III of Sweden, and after that to the son King Sigismund, and he was also in many ways the King John gave him many leading roles in the kingdom thanks to his loyalty, while other aristocrats felt that he was even a little bit too loyal against his better knowledge, but it paid off. He was the favorite of King John. This couple, they were born in a generation of Swedish aristocrats who already were born in a reformed Sweden, or Sweden that was in the middle of the Reformation. So at least in principle they received education reading according to the principles of Martin Luther. It was also a generation of new big stone castles. Here is one of the stone manors that belonged to the family of Stenbock, where Ebba was as a little girl, and here is one of the manors that belonged to the Fleming family in the present-day Finland, and they were also used to warfare, and the families were of Fleming and Stenbock families. The men had important roles as officers at war and as leaders of troops, and Klaus Fleming was the mightiest of them all. When John III died, Baron Klaus Fleming was both the admiral of the Swedish fleet and the governor of Finland and Livonia, and he took the Swedish fleet to Poland to accompany Sigismund and to bring him to Sweden to be crowned. So it was already when John III had died, Duke Charles, the younger brother of John, was plotting in order to get power in his hands, and it was a lot in many ways thanks to Admiral Klaus Fleming, who took his fleet against the order of Duke Charles and came to help King Sigismund. In the coronation of King Sigismund, who was taken to Poland for negotiations and then was crowned in Uppsala, Klaus Fleming had he bore the sword of state at Sigismund coronation, and King Sigismund had promised that he would spend most of his time in Poland, so he had to leave the Swedish realm, but he trusted to Klaus Fleming and to many of Ebba Stenbock's brothers. They were given important positions as stewards, as taking care of strategic castles. Then things got messy. King Sigismund started to lose his support, and soon the present-day Sweden was in the hands of Duke Charles, but Klaus Fleming still held the area of Finland, and he kept fighting to support the case of King Sigismund against Duke Charles. And when Klaus Fleming died in suddenly 1597, it was the widow Baroness Ebba who became an important figure in defending the Turku castle. You can see the Turku castle is on the Finnish side, and it was the most important political and military center. And when the Duke Charles came to the Finnish side, Ebba Stenbock and other supporters of King Sigismund fought back, and one of the reports of the time describes the widow Ebba saying that this noble lady was not only brave herself, she even guided the officers and the other ranks with her words and encouragement, urging them to stay loyal to their king and to show bravery in front of the enemy. With her own dauntless character, she gave an example how one should not be afraid but manly to fight the very last. The very last, however, came quite soon as the winter was coming and the troops were unhappy, and so Ebba had to give up the castle. In this painting, which is of course from a very late period, you can see Ebba Stenbock in Turku castle, and there is Duke Charles, and the Duke Charles is he wanted to be sure that Baron Klaus Fleming was dead. So according to a tale, he opened his coffin to see the dead body there, and this is an event that has been a lot of speculation and stories are related to this. Well, this was the core of the support that this kind of support was given by Klaus Fleming and Ebba Stenbock to King Sigismund in the fight in the late 16th century, and so there were speculations about their Catholic sympathies. In one political pamphlet, there was somebody who was building a quite complicated network or web, web of rumors, saying that that King Sigismund, who had promised to let Swedes live in Lutheran faith, had actually given power to a group of papists, as the pamphlet says, mostly brothers-in-law, who clearly were benevolent towards Catholics. And the pamphlet lists then lists these persons, connecting them to Count Erik Brahe, who was an open Catholic person, and then there is a lot of talk about Klaus Fleming, who was married to Ebba Stenbock, aunt of Count Erik, and then further Ebba's brothers are mentioned, who were uncles to Count Erik, this Catholic count. So they are trying to argue that because these persons were connected by kinship and marriages, they were all, by definition, Catholics. However, this kind of it is quite difficult to really prove this kind of convictions. In the late 16th century, it was not a period of totally free speech or freedom of religion. People were not very eager to leave written documents about their faith or conviction. In this new book there is an article, open access, where I and Ulla Koskinen, we have studied quite a big corpus of correspondence between aristocrats and nobility in the 16th century, and they were quite reluctant to talk about any issues of faith at all. In one special text, we can see that Baron Klaus Fleming is critical about Calvinism, which has been connected to Duke Charles. But otherwise, in general, if one takes a look at the correspondence, then one can see that the Swedish nobility mostly supported Lutheran faith, but hoped very much that the king and the duke could somehow have peace, so that King Sigismund could continue, and that the Swedish inhabitants could continue with their Lutheran faith. Now, however, of course, in Rome there was, and in the Catholic Church there was lots of interest and hopes that Swedes could be persuaded to come back, and in the sources that have been collected or sent or archived by the Holy See or by the Jesuit order in Rome, there are some lists that speculate about people who might have positive attitudes towards the Catholic Church. Already in the 1580s, there is a long list with names from the families Bjelke, Sparre, and also Dominus Nicolaus Fleinuig must be Klaus Fleming, who are listed as maybe Catholic minded. However, the list seems to represent a bit wishful thinking. I was reminded of this list yesterday when one presentation was describing how Possevino had encouraged the Catholic representatives to travel to Sweden because John III is almost converted again, and the reality was not that fine. So there seems to be some wishful thinking in the reports that were sent to Rome. Quite naturally, one might wish to prove that one is making that there is some hope and that more energy, and it's worth a fight worth fighting for. What we know for certain is that Baron Klaus Fleming and Baroness Ebba Stenbock, that they took several Catholic learned persons to their shelter, to their household, and among them were the Catholic learned persons such as the doctor of the Catholic Count Erik Brahe, who was mentioned earlier, who had Count Erik Brahe had a special license to be Catholic, otherwise it was not seen as a good thing to be a Catholic in Sweden, and he had Catholic learned men around him. And when things became messy and difficult, then the Klaus Fleming and Ebba Stenbock took care of these several Catholic priests and students and doctors. And however, there is also a report by Germanico Malaspina, who was the nuncio of the Pope in the time when Klaus Fleming came to help King Sigismund. And there is actually, according to notes from the some notes by Henry Biaudet, there is a report where Germanico Malaspina reports directly that the admiral is not a Catholic. They were sailing towards Sweden, there was a big storm, and Malaspina reports that the admiral asked Malaspina to pray for the storm to settle down, but the admiral himself did not pray the patron saint, Saint Birgitta of Sweden. So this for Malaspina was the sign that the admiral was the enemy of the Duke Charles, was very loyal to King Sigismund, but it was not related to his personal conviction. So anyway, the connections between the Catholic representatives of the king and of other Catholic aristocracy, they had close communications between first Klaus Fleming and Ebba Stenbock, and after the death of Klaus Fleming, the connection was continued by Baroness Ebba. After the Turku castle had surrendered, Baroness Ebba was taken and imprisoned in Stockholm. There she would meet the delegate of the king, Samuel Vaski, and they tried to raise mutiny in the fleet of the Duke Charles, which resulted to some executions of noblemen whom they managed to get into the plot. These Catholic contacts were important contacts, as these as they wanted, Baron Klaus and Baroness Ebba wanted to have as good knowledge and information as possible about the thoughts and political and military movements by King Sigismund. These persons carried messages, participated to the political discussions and plans, but it seems indeed that the guiding star was loyalty to the king, and thus the Catholic servants to the king were to be helped. And but during this, when I have been doing this research, I have every now and then seen documents that are related to these Polish-Lithuanian connections to the Rome. And now, when we have this new network, I maybe have some new hopes that I might take a closer look into this topic that has been speculated a lot and studied quite a little. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
1 minute. Okay, thank you so much for your very well prepared and analytical presentation. Who was here? Anyone? Any questions?
Yes, I was wondering, do we know anything about their connections to the Birgittines? Did Ebba and Klaus have connections, for example, to Nordendal, which was Birgittine had been near Turku or Bastion or anything?
Yes, that is actually a very good question. When it comes to Klaus Fleming, his aunt was the abbess of the Brigittine monastery or convent of Naantali, but it was so in the early years of the Reformation in the area of Finland, one can see a really interesting situation where the abbess Valborg Fleming is trying to protect the interests of the convent of Naantali against the Reformation or especially against the confiscation of the property of the convent. And the brother Erik Fleming, father to Klaus Fleming, he is one of the very active persons confiscating the property. And there was some discussion that Erik Fleming and Valborg Fleming, that they were kind of plotting together, or that the Valborg was not that eagerly or was not able to protect, or maybe not even wanted to protect the Brigittine convent. But it is there are documents that might prove this, and there are documents that might also show that aunt of Klaus Fleming was quite was still trying to do her best. There is a Swedish book, Förlorarnas historia, where the author makes a lot of the connections of the Fleming family to the Brigittine monastery convent, but it is partly very wrong, because it is kind of stretching the argument and saying that there were lots of nuns from the Fleming family living in the convent, but many of these nuns had died already before the Reformation. So so there are many problems with the sources and interpretation.
Just such a speculative question. Thank you. It was fascinating, and I really enjoyed that. As far as I understood the situation between King John and Marcelino, is that the king entertained certain idea of creating a sort of established church with some Catholic elements, something in a middle ground between Catholicism and Lutheranism, and that's why he requested those dispensations, which were not granted, of course. And I also know such testimonies from Polish situation and writing. Some Catholic writers who were trying to flatter Lutherans, mostly to antagonize them, to alienate Calvinists, and writing like Hieronim Powodowski, for example, that we are much closer than you are with the Reformed Church. So is it possible that Fleming would be of similar option, that not quite Catholic, but also entertaining the idea of some possible, however illusional or delusional union? Is it possible that this way of thinking still existed?
Yes, it is possible. As Klaus Fleming was very loyal to King John, then there are signs that he was also loyal to his church policy, and there is one longer text that Klaus Fleming has left about the religious situation in Sweden. It must have been written mostly by some priest, because he was not an educated man, but there it seems that one can see the similar kind of some balancing. The text is kind of tries to defend the ideas that John III had. So yes, there is something along the lines, but how well thought it was, I'm not sure. Klaus Fleming was also even objectively speaking, he was quite a horrible man. He was really easily upset. He was quite violent, and he maybe not very clever, but not wise, but maybe clever. So he sided with the king, and he knew how to show his support. Then yes. So there is something in there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.